TalkShop.com and use promo code WATER to get 10% off their entire family of incredible products. Or call toll-free 888-253-3139. In the last 50 years, iodine has been phased out of our staple foods and replaced with the halogen bromine, a practice now banned in nations around the world. Guess what else is in the halogen family? Fluoride. Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Jones here. In 1924, the federal government did the right thing and encouraged salt producers to add iodine. It's the good halogen on the periodic table, and the results are on record. Reports documented a 15-point IQ increase in areas that had previously been deficient in iodine. Bottom line, iodine is important. Unbound, clean, in a glycerin base. Nascent iodine was the answer for myself and my family. You will find Survival Shield Nascent Iodine exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWars Life Survival Shield Nascent Iodine isn't just for emergencies. I take it every day. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. From the water table to our soils to the atmosphere itself, our world is becoming more and more toxic each and every day. But it's not just the air outside that's toxic. Indoor air has been shown to have 2 to 5 times higher concentrations of pollutants than even outdoor air. And most Americans spend 90% of their time inside using toxic chemicals within their homes. There are more than 42 million smokers in the United States. Well over 1,000 types of mold and mildew linked to numerous conditions. And don't forget the fact that 6 million Americans live with pets they're allergic to as well. When I began to research these statistics, it was clear to me it was time to start cleansing my lungs in order to combat the toxic environment that we cannot escape, but that we can fight back against. Made with organic and wild cultivated herbs and manufactured in the USA, the new InfoWars Life Lung Cleanse is here in a convenient spray bottle that can be brought with you throughout any toxic environment. Now available exclusively at InfoWarsLife.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.
I don't know what it is. Ralph just won't pay any attention to me. When he comes home from work, all he ever does is play video games and go to sleep. It's like I don't even exist.
Oh, Betty, that's just awful.
Does this seem familiar? If the answer to this question is yes, then listen carefully. Toxic pesticides, GMO foods and additives, BPA plastics, contaminated water supplies. Many of these toxic additives are deliberately engineered to attack and weaken human masculinity. It's part of the eugenics population control movement. Look it up. If men are more interested in online gaming than they are in their wives, a serious population crisis is soon to follow. Energize the man in your life with Super Male Vitality from InfoWarsLife.com. It's designed to aid the body in ways that help invigorate your natural systems without artificial testosterone, completely free of GMOs, harmful additives, gluten, and is made right here in the USA. Get your Super Male Vitality right now at InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139.
Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
We now take you live to the Central Texas Command Center in the heart of the resistance. You're listening to the Alex Jones Show.
Thank you for joining us on this original June 1st, 2014 Sunday broadcast. We're now into the 2 final segments, and we've saved some of the most informative, thought-provoking information to the last. And that is Dr. Steve Pieczenik. I won't go over his whole bio in the interest of time, but he co-authored a lot of books with Tom Clancy. They've got a posthumously published book that he worked on with Clancy that is coming out as we speak. We'll get Dr. Pieczenik to mention that at the end because it's interesting and it ties into what's happening currently. That's why people like Tom Clancy and Pieczenik's books, is because they accurately predict so much of what then unfolds. But the reason I wanted to get him on is that he said back last year, but then again in February on the Nightly News here at Infowars.com, that he thinks Snowden is a setup. All I know is they don't want it known that the NSA is spying on everybody. They don't want it known that this is happening and going on. But if it's already going to come out, could he then become the authority, an avatar, as Pieczenik called it, and be a limited hangout, basically, to then control the information? Or could he work for big corporations like Google and Microsoft that are doing more spying than the NSA is doing? And that's admitted. I'm not saying I agree with Pieczenik, but he did run psychological operations for the State Department and he is a famous psych warfare guy in his own right. He knows General Alexander. I know he knows Clapper and people. So we're going to find out if it's his opinion. He's saying that he thinks this is an elaborate operation with Snowden, or whether he has actual proof of that. But first, I wanted to play a brief clip of Brian Williams on NBC. The reason we're having Pieczenik back on, last week, he came out and said, I was trained as a spy. I worked for the CIA and NSA. That's what Pieczenik had said in multiple interviews, was that, to quote Pieczenik, he's more than just a technician, Alex. Well, now he's saying that himself. So here's Brian Williams with Snowden.
I was trained as a spy in sort of the traditional sense of the word, in that I lived and worked undercover overseas, pretending to work in a job that I'm not, and even being assigned a name that was not mine. But I am a technical specialist. I am a technical expert.
All right, that's enough. The interview got a lot of attention. I'm not going to replay the clips of Pieczenik predicting that he would come out and say that. We aired it last week on the show, but now we've got Pieczenik on this Sunday. Doc, we've only got this segment and the next, so let's condense it down. Thanks for coming on the Sunday show on short notice. Break down why you said that and why it's important, and what you say about his new comments.
I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank your audience. The reason I said it is because I know the modus operandi of the CIA. The very important thing that you have to understand about Snowden is that he is a manufactured a product of the CIA or the military-industrial complex. Why do I say that? Number one, he follows the modus operandi of the predecessor, Daniel Ellsberg. Both were so-called in the military. Snowden failed the so-called special forces. That's what he claimed. He was never qualified. Daniel Ellsberg was in military intelligence and worked at the State Department as the cover, but was really in the CIA working for General Lansdale. That was 40 years ago. Both came out in terms of a company that was not apparently affiliated with the military intelligence complex. In the case of Ellsberg, it was the RAND Corporation, where I came in and I worked on the Soviet Union. And in the case of Snowden, it was Booz Allen that received $6 billion from the CIA directly. And the head of Booz Allen at the time that Snowden was in there was McTiernan, who was deputy director, acting DCI of the CIA. And now the head of it was McDonnell, who is a naval intelligence officer. And so James Clapper was in Booz Allen, as were many other CIA operatives. And so he came out of the CIA, born, bred out of the CIA. What he said, and what he said specifically in this interview with Brian Williams, where Brian Williams was totally had by an operative, because if you listen to the words that Snowden said, he said very distinctly, I am a CIA spy. I predicted that a year ago. I predicted that on your show 6 months ago. What does that really mean? What that really means is that the CIA, and Snowden in particular, is working with his handlers, who in particular is the man named John Brennan. That's the one name that has not come out repeatedly in his conversation or his indictments. What Snowden said was, I'm against people like Keith Alexander, and I happen to know Keith Alexander. I like him, but that doesn't mean I justify that he had a massive surveillance of the American public. But the two people that Snowden attacked were military officials, one who was particularly very powerful, and that was Keith Alexander.
And that's what you said last year when no one was saying it. You said it was part of a inner CIA Pentagon power struggle, which they now admit Benghazi's a big part of.
Exactly. This is the extension of Benghazi and the CIA and the military fighting out for control of the military-industrial complex, as it's evidenced by companies like SAIC, Booz Allen, MITRE, L3 Corporation. This has nothing to do with the American public, the safety of the American public, the national security, or with the sanctity of our nation. This has to do simply with the fact that the military-industrial complex, particularly the intelligence corporation, could care less about our safety as does the military. Because the military feels, and this is very painful for me to say, having been a Navy captain, that we do not have a nation anymore. We have an army, but we do not have a nation. We have, in America, we have a country, but we do not have an army. And the CIA, military intelligence, National Geospatial Agency, National Security Agency, feels the same way. They don't care about the protection and the national security of America. They haven't really done anything to prevent terrorism, to protect us. What they care about is one simple matter. They want to game out the of who gets the most money in the military-industrial complex, particularly in intelligence. That's why I could predict this matter. It's not something I read in tea leaves or I made up. Keith Alexander is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful individual now in national security. He acquired that power because, contrary to what the CIA was 30 years ago, which was based on human, which is what Snowden said very specifically, and Snowden was very proud of the fact that he was part of an intelligence gathering capacity where you don't have to go to college anymore. And it's true. You just have to be very proficient on the Internet. So people like Snowden were hired by the CIA, went through the National Security Agency, at the same time worked at the Defense Intelligence Agency, because all of the other groups, including the CIA, are not as proficient as the National Security Agency.
Sure. And you've worked in the State Department, you know, but mainly from the Army angle, helping found Delta Force, and that's on record.
Correct. I helped found Delta Force with Larry Eagleberg. I'm not going to tell full credit. The reason we didn't have a Delta Force is because we had hostage negotiations 30 years ago. I didn't have the counterpart to what the British had, the SAS, and we needed a key force, and that's why we nurtured, Larry Eagleberger and I nurtured Special Forces and Delta Force so that we could have a precision instrument to go in and strike out people.
Now, we're about to go to break. Just, I want to come back and get into the bigger picture here and where this is all going. But what, for laymen, what is the point then in the warfare inside the establishment? What is the point of Snowden then? What's the objective?
The Snowden point is very simply more money for more intelligence that has nothing to do with the protection of the Republic. The Republic and America is irrelevant to the aggrandizement of private institutions that are affiliated with our intelligence community. So the CIA grows bigger, more inefficient. NSA goes bigger, more inefficient. The Defense Intelligence Agency grows bigger and inefficient, and America is paying a very heavy price while we lose our capacity to really protect ourselves and to garner any sense of economic strength. We are losing our capacity to be a viable republic because our military and our intelligence system is sucking out the very marrow of our existence, which is money, servitude, loyalty, transparency, and honesty.
All right, well, stay there. We got to go to break. Dr. Steve Pieczenik's our guest. StevePieczenik.com is his excellent website. Find out the latest books that are there and more. But we're going to go to break here. I remember seeing people like military professors like Thomas Barnett a decade ago on C-SPAN lecturing at the Naval War College in places, telling the generals and the admirals, we don't represent America, we represent Wall Street. And when they say that, they mean a select inside group in Wall Street that are monopoly capitalist, who are exempt from taxes, who lobby to raise our taxes to get corporate welfare. I want to get Steve Pieczenik's take on that statement if he thinks it's accurate. After the break, I'm Alex Jones. Follow us on Twitter at RealAlexJones and Infowars.com. Stay with us for the final segment. The globalists have controlled the mainstream media for a long time, but now they're expanding and making the weaponization even more vicious and deceptive. All the major networks are state-run.
We are partnering this year with the NFL.
The NFL has become a political weapon against the Second Amendment and pushes Obamacare. MSNBC tells us that our children belong to the state.
We have to break through our kind of private idea that kids belong to their parents or kids belong to their families and recognize that kids belong to whole communities.
It is more important than ever to realize that we are not the alternative media. We are the true media. The establishment dinosaur press is dying.
We are in an information war, and we are losing that war.
Join us at InfoWarsNews.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. Members can share their memberships with up to 11 people. By subscribing, you will literally be buying war bonds in the info war to expand our operation in the face of the tyrants. Join us at PrisonPlanet.tv.
A chemical spill contaminating the water supply in 9 West Virginia counties.
This year alone, over 300,000 people in West Virginia had their drinking water contaminated.
What are the health effects of having these drugs in our drinking water?
It's forced medical treatment without the consent of residents.
My friends, water filtration is one of the most basic actions you can take to protect you and your family from the harmful toxins and heavy metals in your tap water.
On average, the county says it sprays with the glyphosate at least once a week.
Few filters cut out the glyphosate that is found in water supplies applies worldwide. Remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, hydrofluorosilicic acid, sodium hexafluorosilicate.
Fluoride, it is in tea, it's in coffee, it's in water, it's in bread, it's in toothpaste.
It is our responsibility to protect our families. The establishment's not going to do it. It's time to take action. It's time to filter our water. Visit InfoWarsStore.